Why isn't Kate a candidate? What are the rules between Widmore and Ben? And why doesn't Sawyer know who Anakin is? We'll have information on all that and more in today's official Lost audio podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the penultimate edition of the official Lost audio podcast with executive producers Damon Lindelof and Carlton Cuse. They are back today to rehash The Candidate, prehash Across the Sea, and as always, take your fan questions. Don't forget that you can send in your questions, comments, concerns, and other things to possibly be answered, made fun of, or just read by Damon and Carlton at lostfanquestions@abc.com. As always, check the legalese at the end of the podcast, as if you don't know it by now. Here now are Damon and Carlton.
Hello, Damon.
Hello there, Carlton.
How are you, Damon?
Well, it's been an emotional week, I think, for all of us.
It has indeed. It's been. We locked the show on Monday night, which means we finished the editing part of the process, and that sort of is kind of the end of the storytelling. I mean, we still have work to do. We're still working on visual effects, and there's music and sound work to be done. But in terms of the sort of storytelling,
yeah, that's the big kahuna. And one of the great things about editing our finales is because Jack Bender essentially finished shooting the finale about 5 or 6 days before we had to deliver the locked show. So we have 4 full-time editors this year, really, if we added a 5th. And they're all working on individual scenes, so we're seeing it in bits and pieces, but we didn't get to actually watch it start to finish in its entirety until about 3 days before we actually had to lock it.
yeah, we basically lived in the editing room for 6 days straight.
And boy, did it smell good.
The editors, some of the editors were literally sleeping in there on the couches, and it is amazing. I mean, especially now, as you all have probably heard, the finale is going to be 2.5 hours. It's going to start at 9 o'clock and then at 11:30, and it's really a feature-length film, and it didn't fit into 2 hours of network programming, and so we literally edited a movie that, in the film business, somebody might spend 5 months doing the work that we did in 6 days.
Look, it was an enormously emotional experience. Every time we watched the show, realizing what we were watching was the last one. There were parts of us wanting to hold on to it and not be done that was very interesting, and I do think it's worth name-checking our editors, Steve Semmel and Mark Goldman, who have been with us since the first season.
And Chris Nelson and Hank Van Egan.
Yes.
And I think we also have to name-check David Eisenberg.
Right. Who started kind of as an assistant but is now cutting scenes, and then Lance Stubblefield and Chris Braun, who are the very capable assistant editors.
And Clay.
Yes, and Clay, who came out of nowhere.
He was like a guy like in a baseball team that you pick up in like at the end of the season, and he joins the roster.
And he's not as jaded about the show as we are, so he brought this sort of youthful
super enthusiasm.
He goes, wow, that's a really cool scene. So we're like, thank God for Clay. But enormously talented. The show was completed exactly in the best way, in this very sort of collaborative, live-together, die-alone thing. And of course, one day later, after we lock the finale, the episode, The Candidate, airs. It is a very emotional experience for us as writers and storytellers when characters die. And I say that, it is distinct from when we kill characters. For Sun and Jin, it felt like they died. We've known for quite some time that the Man in Black, Locke, whatever you want to call him, was working on this plan to get everybody together in one place at one time, and we wanted him to get half the candidates in one fell swoop.
Yeah, I mean, it was important because we really had to, at this point, eliminate any doubt about Locke being bad. He is most clearly the force of antagonism now, and it kind of, but when we watched the scene for the first time in the editing room, it was really profound for us too, because it really signified that the show was ending. I mean, this is sort of the beginning of the symphonic suite that brings us right to the conclusion of Lost, and it was the first major event that in a series of events that will conclude the series. And so their death was sad because we were sad to see all those characters go, but it was also kind of the first demarcation that, oh my gosh, the show is really now in its kind of concluding, few moments.
And, we can't say enough good things about Yoon-jin Kim and Daniel Dae Kim's amazing performance. I think it's one thing to say, wow, they were really good in that moment, but when you think about what was really happening for them, being on the stage, wet, take after take, having to play that kind of emotion, bringing their characters in. And obviously, look, we knew from the moment that we pulled the trigger on this, and we talked about it excessively in the writer's room, that a lot of people are going to be very angry about this and sad because Sun and Jin are parents. Jin is actually making this decision to be with his wife because of this promise that he made with her, as opposed to sort of the opportunity to potentially live on and be with this daughter whom he has never met. We said the decision that he makes in the moment that he makes it, and he only has about 20 seconds to make it, is that he wants to die with the woman that he loves. And it's controversial, but that's what he did.
We felt it was really important that the audience understand that, going into the end of this show, nobody is safe. I mean, one of the problems in television is that you innately know that certain characters aren't going to die, and that strips certain shows of their jeopardy. We want there to be a feeling that anything is possible, and going into the end of the series, that is very much true. And in fact, there will be some surprising things.
Yeah, we're sorry that it happened, but we're not sorry that we did it. And we make no excuses for it. It is a very intense and dark time on the show, and obviously the deaths of these characters provides a tremendous emotional catalyst for the survivors, because now they're at war. The sides were a little hazy before now there's great clarity. And there's 4 hours of the show left. 4.5.
And speaking, 4.5 hours. Speaking of the remaining shows, next week, Across the Sea. And in this episode, we get to see Allison Janney, who joins us for an episode, and that was really an amazing experience for us. She's one of our favorite actors, and the fact that we got her to do this episode was thrilling for us, and we are so grateful because she squeezed it in among other commitments she had, including a pilot that she was getting ready to shoot, and she does an amazing job in the episode. And we don't really want, this is one of those episodes of Lost that we don't really want to say anything about, because if the enjoyment of the show comes from it just washing over you and kind of going with the unexpected, this is an episode for you. And there obviously are some hints in the promos, but we're not going to talk about that. But it's an important episode, and it really was enormously helpful for us to get Allison Janney to do this part because she plays a really important role.
Will you answer one question about the episode?
Yes.
Does Allison Janney play a dragon?
She does not play a dragon,
okay.
But I love that question.
I unfortunately have to start with a serious question, Carlton.
Oh my God, okay.
This comes from Michelle Stark, who addresses this. Damon and Carlton. Our question has to do with Carlton's sometimes Canadian-sounding accent. The way he says sorry sounds exactly like how some Canadian folks say the word. Why is this? We don't think he is from Canada. Does he love the Canadian speak so much that he sometimes channels it? Does he have a sideways counterpart in the Great White North?
My God.
Woohoo! 2.5-hour Lost finale. Love, Michelle and Brian from Tampa and Jacksonville, Florida. No relation to Tallahassee. Carlton.
Wow.
Please say sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is. It's Canadian sound.
I love Canada. There literally are no nicer people on the planet than Canadians.
I think you just created an international incident.
Well, I'm sorry. I'm sorry the rest of the world, but I love Canada. But I don't have any association with Canada, although there maybe is a sideways Carlton in Canada. I just don't know about it.
So what's the answer to the question, Carlton? Why do you say sorry the way you do?
I don't know. It's just I would have to go back.
Is this another mystery that's not going to get resolved?
This is a mystery that I promise you will never be answered in the course of Lost's canon. But I think I have to go explore my family roots. That's a good thing for me to do. Once the show's over, I've been kind of looking for a mission. So maybe I have to go and find if there's some Canadians deep in my background somewhere. All right. Damon, are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. This is, hey, Darlton. After last night's fantastical episode, I have to ask, was Frank really hated that much? When the survivors got to shore, they mentioned Sun and Jin and even Saeed, who was blown to chunks, but not one person ever mentions good old Lapidus. It would appear as if he was knocked unconscious and subsequently drowned in the sub, or as some people say, smashed by the flying door. Weirder things have happened. Was he that despised? Thanks for years of awesomeness. It will be weird to see these characters go after 6 years. best of luck with your future work.
That's a good question, and in the writing of that scene, I think we certainly considered them running down the laundry list of characters, but we did want it to be very focused on, they're going to reference the people who were on the oceanic plane, who have been with us since the very beginning. That's where their emotional ties are strongest. So, yes, it is a significant emotional omission, but maybe one that they will be correcting when we revisit them on that beach the next morning. But in that moment, I think the tragic loss of Sun and Jin and Saeed's sacrifice are the ones that are playing most prevalently for them. The other thing is nobody saw Frank die. I mean, we saw Saeed explode. Jack and Sawyer left Sun and Jin as they were drowning, so maybe...
I thought I saw Jack swimming through some of Lapidus' hair.
Oh, that's interesting. I'll have to
You rewatch it closely, and you might see that.
I'm gonna write that down. Watch that. Okay. Carlton.
Yes, sir.
This is from Shannon Smith. So my friend Jim Hansen asks, why isn't Kate a candidate? Is it because she's played by a Canadian? I'm just reading the questions, Carlton. Also, can we hear Damon and Carlton say Lapidus fast 3 times for old time's sake?
Lapidus?
Lapidus.
Wow.
Is that like Beetlejuice? If you say his name 3 times, he will appear?
I don't know, but I hope you enjoyed that. That was it. That's all we got on that.
So Carlton...
Speaking on behalf of all Canadians, the
which
fact,
you may be one.
The fact is, this exact issue is going to be addressed in the show. It is something that is important, and it's important to the character, and this is kind of our criteria for these kinds of questions. So the characters are very curious, well, why is Kate not a candidate? And so that will be addressed by the characters and answered in the show.
I just think it shouldn't be because she's played by a Canadian, because Saeed was a candidate, and he's a torturer. I mean,
it has nothing to do with her being Canadian.
Being a torturer is much worse than being Canadian.
Hello, Damon and Carlton. My name is Daniel Marco, and I'm from South Carolina. I was at the mall the other day looking for clothes for a wedding.
Wait a minute. Is this going to be a Justin Bieber story?
No, it's
not.
not.
Go on.
He's from South Carolina, so maybe I was at the mall the other day.
You're going to just
looking
make
for some
people
clothes
angry if you keep going down this
for
road.
a wedding.
Uh-huh.
Wedding? No, that's not South Carolina.
Just stick with your Canadian accent.
When I stumbled upon a replica of something worn by Jacob. This brings up my question. Did Jacob shop at Dillard's before his death? And if so, does this mean Man in Black got his wardrobe from Sears? Thank you for your vital answer to this, Daniel.
Wow, this is a good question. I have not spent a lot of time in Dillard's.
I'm just curious, what is the item in Dillard's that would be a Jacob replica item?
We've definitely got to look into that. As worn by Jacob. He has his own, sort of private label like Marc Jacobs does.
It's just Jacobs.
Right. It's just Jacobs. It's not Marc.
Not Marc Jacobs.
Not Marc Jacobs. But if you like blousy white tops,
like the one you're wearing right
now,
and
rope belts, then you probably dress like Jacob.
Personally, I think you would have been better off with some sort of a camisole under that blousy white top you're wearing today.
Interesting. And I also know for a fact that the Man in Black prefers Tommy Bahama when he goes to the mall. So probably not Sears.
Thank you. That's an answer.
Here's another question that comes from James Hart. Hey, Dalton. Big fan of the show. Been watching since day one, and I don't really have any good questions because I don't need you to give me any more than I already have.
That's
good.
But
I do need to ask you a favor. I've had a running bet going with some of my friends, and there's $20 in it for you if, in the finale, you can reveal that Richard Alpert only has 4 toes. I don't think that'd be too hard. You can just do a quick pickup, right? Love you guys. Can't wait for your epic to be complete. James Hart, Fort Collins, Colorado. So we've locked the finale, but Carlton, could we put in an ADR line somewhere where Richard, if still alive in the finale, could say,
"I've got 4 toes."
Right. It would just be that simple.
Any
line of dialogue, he could say, "Oh, by the way, got 4 toes."
$20 though. That's God.
I'll split it with you.
See, nobody really understood that. $10-$20, you could get anything to happen on Lost. You want a character dead? Maybe $25. $5, you can find out who the guy is that Saeed shot on the golf course. There's a price. There's a price for every answer.
Excellent. Well, I think we just determined how we're going to make money post-Lost.
Not really. This is from Attila Boslai from Timisoara, Romania.
Wow.
I butchered everything about that except the country Romania.
Okay, so far we have angered South Carolinians, Canadians,
the rest of the world,
everybody who's not Canadian,
and Romanians.
Yes.
We apologize. I apologize for my inability to pronounce your name. Hi, Damon and Carlton. Do the Whispers, the ghosts who can't move on, take orders from the Man in Black? Because Michael sent Hurley and Jack to talk to Unlock, which was what Unlock wanted. And back in Season 3, when Locke was looking for Jacob's cabin, Horace told him in a dream that Jacob has been waiting for him a really long time. But then he told him how to find Jacob. Yet it wasn't Jacob in the cabin, but Christian, a.k.a. the Man in Black. Thanks, guys. I love the show.
If the answer is, do the Whispers work for the Man in Black? I think the answer is no. Everything's subject to interpretation, but I don't think it was ever our intention that Michael was telling Hurley to go talk to Locke. In fact, Hurley confides to Jack, this was my idea. I think we should go talk to him. All Michael says is, if you go and you blow up that plane, more people are going to get killed. I think that we can say it is not our intention that there is a link between the Whispers, or the Island Dead, as it were, and the Man in Black. Although the Man in Black has presented himself as the dead in some cases, one of the cool things that we think, as a result of Locke admitting to Jack that he was taking on the guise of his dead father, is, does that mean that every time we've ever seen a dead person on the island, it was the monster? Or are we supposed to look at that through the prism now of, it could have been? And then the question just becomes, was that person appearing to someone who normally has the ability to see the dead? Like Mr. Echo, for example, didn't ever seem to ever see dead people, but he did see Yemi. So maybe that would be a Man in Black manifestation. But Hurley, who has seen the dead on a regular basis, if he sees Isabella, Richard's wife, I think it's probably safe to bet that's Isabella.
That's correct. Because he has a special ability.
That's good logic.
It is good logic, and it just requires a more complex understanding than just a simple rule that all people who are dead on the show are manifestations of the Man in Black, which is too simple.
Funny you should mention rules, Carlton.
Oh wait, one more thing. I just had the
greatest segue.
Oh, sorry.
Whatever you say now, though, just work the word rules in. That way the segue can still hold.
Is it possible for you to change your name to Attila? Because then I was thinking, we could be Attilaton. And that would actually give you more letters than Darlton. And I think Attilaton has kind of Attilaton sounds like that. Attilaton could be the star of a Japanese horror movie. Like, I would like to see Attilaton versus Godzilla.
I think it is possible.
This was just my brain was roving during that last question, and this just came to mind. I had to mention it.
It is possible.
I mean, I don't know if that would break some sort of rule.
Rules, you say, Carlton? Well, that leads us to our next question from Stephen Murray. Dear Damon and Carlton.
Murray's a Canadian name, you know. Like Anne Murray. She's one of my favorite Canadians. That woman can sing.
I don't even know where to begin. Was she in Pete's Dragon?
I don't know.
I think she was.
But I'm going to go rent it immediately if she was.
Anyway, I just wanted to work dragons in there again. You sure Allison Janney does not play a dragon?
No, she does not play a dragon.
Does she breathe fire? Does she have wings?
In the first draft, she did breathe a little fire, but we cut that, if you remember.
Alrighty.
Okay.
Dear Damon and Carlton, since you were on a break now this week from the show, I've been watching over some of my favorite episodes from all the seasons. This evening, I was watching The Shape of Things to Come, Season 4, Ben episode, classic Ben episode. I was wondering if you are going to answer a question that was brought up in that episode. In the final scene with Ben and Widmore, Ben tells him that he is going to wish he never changed the rules for killing Alex. What are these rules that Ben talks about? Is it like some code of honor the others have for not killing each other or their family, or is it something else altogether? Please, can you put this mystery to bed? Finally, all the best and good luck with the finale. Stephen Murray from Dublin, Ireland.
Okay, Stephen, here's what we can do. We can put your question to bed, but we will not be putting the mystery to bed. Basically, there are rules, but there is not going to come a time between now and the end of the show where some character is going to sit down with all the characters and say, all right, let me break it down. Here's a chalkboard. Here's a list of the rules 1 to 10 that govern what exactly goes on the island. Basically, the characters are in the same situation as the audience. They're trying to figure out the rules on the fly, and some of them will become clear. Others, you as an audience member are going to get to speculate about after the show is over.
Yes, for those of you who feel like you need to see that scene, please rent The Matrix Reloaded. and watch the scene between Neo and the architect. And when you watch that scene, and then you wake up,
you will understand why we did not put it in law.
Now, that being said, it is possible that we will get a little bit more clarity on what the important rules are.
The rules that are important for the narrative that we are telling will be clear.
Right. Good.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's enough of an answer for me.
You know, it's kind of sad because this is our penultimate podcast.
I do have one question
you
for
do?
you, though, before we
All
start.
right, well, then fire off another one. Before we
weeping.
start the sad goodbyes. Almost goodbyes.
Yes.
All right.
This question is from Dara Khan in Annapolis, Maryland. Cues
Hi,
aloft.
Dara.
Who is Anakin? Who is Anakin? How is it that Sawyer, extremely well-versed in nuanced references to pop culture, incluging the Star Wars films on several occasions, but all the way back to Season 1, someone who doesn't know who Anakin is? I have several theories. Number one, Jughead somehow caused the awful prequel trilogy to cease to exist. George Lucas.
That's got to be the answer, but go ahead.
Yeah, George Lucas now works at Mr. Clux.
Yes.
Number two, Sawyer doesn't watch new movies, only the classics, which they have parens most likely. Number three, the Mercury in Carlton's feathered hat, which I see you are not wearing today, Carlton, got the best of him. The mystery is right up there with the Smoke Monster Whispers and Who the Glass Eye Belongs To. Please explain, Carlton, how is it possible that Sawyer doesn't know who Anakin is?
Well, answer two is kind of almost correct. The answer to this question is that Sawyer knew that he was not going to like the prequel movies, and so he chose not to sully his Star Wars experience by watching them.
Right.
He decided, I'm going to stick with the first three movies that were filmed, and that's it. I'm just going with the middle trio, and I don't want to watch those other movies. So he made a choice based on what he'd heard to not watch those movies, thus he does not know who Anakin is.
Right, and I think that also, Anakin, if you're a true Star Wars fan, like a geek, like Hurley is, you would have known Anakin's name based on the first three movies, although it never got technically mentioned per se. But Sawyer is not a geek.
Right.
He likes the Star Wars films, but he doesn't know Bib Fortuna from a hole in the ground.
No, he doesn't. He's got a tub of popcorn and a date, and he's just enjoying the films.
Right.
Do you think they screened Star Wars in Room 23 on the island?
It's possible.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chris White.
Why not go
Why
for
there,
it?
right there.
I still want to read Hurley's improved version of The Empire Strikes Back.
Maybe, that would be fantastic.
Maybe one day we'll make that commercially available.
If there was a Lost sequel, like maybe that's it. You just really go tangential. You don't actually, don't go back to the island and tell the story of the Egyptians building Tawarat. You just do like Hurley's version of The Empire Strikes Back.
The Egyptians built Tawarat?
Well, I'm just saying.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. That's a congratulations. And it is, as Carlton said, this is the penultimate podcast. There is going to be one last podcast that we do between Across the Sea and What They Died For.
That's it.
Yeah, and that's it.
Because we basically, What They Died For as kind of commences the finale as far as we're concerned. I mean,
you understand perhaps what that title means.
The penultimate episode of the series is, in our view, always sort of the beginning of the suite that starts the finale, and so we don't really want to be commenting on that. So after next week's episode, we will be entering, radio silence insofar as our podcast is concerned.
And what's cool about What They Died For is it's going to air on a Tuesday night, and then the finale airs on a Sunday night. So there's going to be 2 less days of waiting between traditional episodes, and you and I are going to get to go do some cool stuff in New York at that time, and we will be talking about the show, but unfortunately not podcasting.
That's right. Yeah, we're doing this New York Times talk on Thursday the 20th, and
that'll be kind of our last public appearance, I guess, for a while.
We're doing Kimmel on Friday night,
right?
So that's kind of our last public appearance.
Will we cease being Dalton at 11:30 on that Sunday night? Will some sort of separation ritual need to be performed? Do I become Damon again?
Wow, I think you do. It's weird. I can't. My brain can't quite fathom it now. I've got to think about that.
Oh my God.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
That's
but
sad.
I know that only one of us will be embraced in Canada after that moment.
Well, I'm very sorry. It's not going to be you. And on that note,
goodbye.
Bid you farewell.
See you next week.
Bye.
That's it for this edition of the Official Lost Audio Podcast. We'll be back next week for our last ever audio podcast with Damon and Carlton. Across the Sea airs Tuesday, May 11th from 9 till 10 p.m. only on ABC. Please note that by submitting your questions, you agree to ABC's terms of use, and you agree to have your name, city, state, and question included in this podcast. All submissions become the property of American Broadcasting Companies, Incorporated, and may be used, edited, republished, or published in any manner and in any media throughout the world in perpetuity without compensation. You must be 18 years or older to send email to abc.com.